we have to start with another team that's having a really tough time, could potentially be facing elimination, and that's Manchester City. They go away to Juventus, where Thiago Motta is getting killed with people saying, you're supposed to bring fun and excitement. This is boring. You're worse than Allegri. No, you play the same football as Allegri, but with worse results. And they lose 2-0. There's a stat that since early November, City have conceded more goals than any team in Europe's Big Five. Now, that needs to be contextualized. I think they've also played more games because they play in the Champions League and say Southampton don't. But it's pretty awful what's happening if you're a City fan.
It's yeah. I mean, my wife and my son are City fans, so I can speak from experience and her kind of throwing cushions around the front room and coming home in a bad mood from seeing City games. And I went with her last week to see the Nottingham Forest game as well, and they're in a really, really bad place. I think. But Pep looks a broken man at the moment. There's obviously things going on behind the scenes as well. But on the field of play, they look slow. They look sluggish. They look like they've kind of lost the plot. It's not the Manchester City that we knew. And I think it's actually coming down, Gab, to mismanagement. You look at the players that they've allowed to go. Alvarez, Cole Palmer's doing well, and the players that they brought in, Docker, Savio. They haven't replenished the team. And I saw them last week, and they got 4 giants at the back. We used to have City playing these inverted fullbacks and Pep reinventing the game. And they just look devoid of ideas at the moment.
Okay, so the 4 big dudes at the back, I'll just reflect slightly on this.
Yeah.
And by the way, thank you for not mentioning Rodgers' absence, which, really is very important.
It's not that
but
simple.
It can't be
it
the
is
only
not that
reason.
simple. Okay, you've lost the best player in the world, but it's not that simple.
But the idea of, as one manager put it, him playing 4 center backs so the strikers can attack. He did that last year, and it worked out pretty well for him. I think it is a natural evolution of Pep, in the sense that maybe when he had more energy and more trust in his front 4, he would be comfortable with winning the ball further up the pitch. Now he's no longer comfortable with that. Or last season he wasn't perhaps as comfortable with it. So he played essentially 4 center backs at the back, plus Rodri, and said, all right, these 5 guys attack and these 5 guys defend. And, well, Rodri does a bit of both. And now you can't do that anymore because the players are older. They're a little sharper. The ball circulation, I think, is a lot worse. Gundogan, he has that shot, but other than that, isn't necessarily adding much. And so you get this sad sight of Erling Haaland, who just doesn't get the service. He's not... this was last night. I thought he had maybe 2 chances. One, the De Bruyne one, which he probably should have scored, and he had this other wonky header. That is on Pep on not making the right adjustment.
Absolutely, and again, it might be the recruitment thing as well. And you could have that age-old argument that when Pep was at Barcelona and he had Ibrahimovic available to him, Barcelona were not at the best. They had a good season. He's now got Haaland there, and he's playing with a big central striker. And is that really the Pep way? When you look at Alvarez, it's surprising how many games Alvarez played when he was at Manchester City. You don't think of him as a starter, but he was a really important player for them. They've lost that kind of alternative for Haaland to go off. And you look at the 4, as you say, the 4 big guys at the back, the big dudes at the back, as you say, but they're like stewards on the gate. They don't move. They're just in these sentry posts, whereas you used to Cancelo making a move inside, or the younger Walker doing things as well. And
but again, they didn't have those guys. They played like they had that same setup last season.
But they were younger and they were fresher last year.
They were a year younger last year, and they had Rodri. See, it all comes back to Rodri. No, I'd also argue that certainly over the summer, adding Savinho, it is a big jump for him. He's still a very young player. It's easy to forget that. So expecting that level of consistency all season long was perhaps going to be a bit of a stretch. They've had other injuries as well. Kovacic is still out. I'm just struck, and by the way, Juve, we will get to you. You deserve credit. I was just struck by what Pep said afterwards, where it felt like after the Feyenoord game, he was very critical of his players. This time around, he basically, I'm paraphrasing here, he says, I've questioned myself, fair enough, but I think this is the right way to play. All right, Rob, what do you make of this, of the double down, which just shades of the whole plan B is doing plan A and doing it better, which I think originally was a Cruyff quote. I think before that, I'm sure there's others who've said that. I think it makes sense. Is it just a question of poor execution, or is actually his plan A not as effective?
look, there's a Pep style of playing, and that's what he did at Barcelona. That's what he did at Bayern. That's what he's done so successfully.
No. I don't buy it. I push back. This is where I get a bully. I get accused of interrupting people. I go full on early Bill O'Reilly here. There's a Pep style, but it's completely evolved and changed over the years.
There is a Pep style. I mean, there isn't a Pep style, but what he does, he changes the game. He evolves his football. There's a Pep way of playing, and then he gets that into his players. But what he also does, he looks to the bench and he refreshes it. It brings players on. He likes to keep a squad. He always famously keeps a squad of about 16, 18 players, and brings 3 or 4 in every game. And he's looking at the moment, he's looking to the bench, and he hasn't got Foden this season. He hasn't got any kids coming through as well. He's lost Bob. We won't mention Rodri again because that's kind of old news. And he doesn't have the alternative. So what he's trying to do is this style that you mentioned last year, the 4 big guys at the back. He's playing this style, but he doesn't have the ability to push a button and change it and look along the bench and bring somebody on whose eyes are bright. Everybody looks tired. De Bruyne looks tired. Gundogan looks tired. Bernardo Silva looks tired. He doesn't have an alternative for Haaland. He's got a style, but he doesn't have an alternative. And I mean, they've got this fantastic academy, haven't they? Is it 10 years they've been there? There's nothing coming through. How many millions have they spent on recruiting players? Well, there may be some that are doing well elsewhere around Europe that you might have mentioned.
There's plenty coming through. It's just that they're not at Manchester City, which is another stick you can. And that Cole Palmer fella's pretty good too.
He's doing okay.
I think there's an argument there also that City would argue that they needed to balance the books. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that in the summer, they got Savinho from their friendly sister club.
Yeah.
And then obviously Gundogan for free. Now we can go back and say, well, instead of Gundogan, why?
But before that, it was Docker. Before that, it was Phillips. They very rarely made a mistake in the transfer market bringing players in Manchester City. But Phillips didn't work out. Gundogan came back. He's not been a hit. Savio, I saw a lot of him in Spain. He's a good player, but ideally,
he's very young.
The Pep way, he'd be giving him a dozen games a season, like he did with Foden. He would bleed him, bringing out, like he did with Bob, like he did with Rico Lewis. But he hasn't been dependent. Docker, I don't think, has hit the standards of being a top 3 player in the English Premier League or the Champions League either.
I really like Doku. I think he's somebody who, I know he had a poor game last night. I think he's somebody who can give you more and can bring that energy which they need. I would like to see him look at the players, and I wonder if on the recruitment piece there wasn't a sense that his contract was expiring at the end of the season, right? We see this all the time with coaches with older players with whom they've won a lot. Mm-hmm. They say, all right, screw this. Let's keep the gang together. One last dance, blah, blah, blah. And I think that was perhaps some of the mindset that was going in. City perhaps reluctant to go and spend money to freshen up the squad, thinking that Pep was going to leave as he was supposed to. Mm-hmm. And so you end up stuck in the situation where suddenly a lot of these players feel old all of a sudden. What I would question is some of these guys, John Stones is fine when he's there.
Yep.
The man's always hurt. Mm-hmm. Like the number of games that Stones has missed over the years.
Yep.
Somebody, they say that the best ability is availability. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but this I think should and could have been addressed sooner. Kyle Walker fell off a cliff a long time ago. All these people, I don't know, this obsession with Kyle Walker's pace. I mean, when people talk about this, what are they like going back 10 years or something?
I think it's quick for a guy of his age and his experience as well. But when I'm commentating, I look at grids and I look at players, how many games they played, and you get to this time of the year, and Pep would be looking to Kyle and saying, I know I've not played you for a few weeks, but could you come back and do me a job at right back for a few games? And we've got to Christmas a few years and think he's going to head off to somewhere else and from City. But now he's the first name on the team sheet out of necessity. Stones has been injured in previous years, but you've not mentioned it because City have had 4 or 5 central defenders to pick from, and now it's Stones isn't there, Rodri isn't there, and you're looking at who's not there rather than who is there and not doing a job.
Well, I'll tell you who is there. I mean, he had an injury, but you never quite know. Does he have an injury or does he just not play and then only play a few minutes? But £100 million for Jack Grealish. Mm-hmm. And again, I think in his view, he got Grealish thinking that there might be some massive upside, which clearly hasn't materialized. But also Grealish is so different from the other wingers that they have because Grealish, to me, slows the game down every time he gets the ball. Mm-hmm. And I think if I can see it, Pep sees it too, right? He plays to win a foul. He gets the ball, he goes around the circle, he moves to some movement, whatever, right? But it's very different from sort of the bang bang, Mahrez, Doku, that those types of wide players, or when Bernardo Silva plays wide, he doesn't have Silva's energy in the press that Silva had, and he doesn't have Silva's passing, right? So he said, "Oh, let me get somebody who's different," right? That's fine, but because he's different, he fits even less with this team. Because when I see him come on, it's almost painful, or I see him play like last night. It's almost painful. He's got nothing to do with his team.
Yeah, I went and I watched them as an observer last week rather than as a professional, and I watched him, and he comes on and he's muscle bound. If he came in the studio now, he'd look stick thin compared to me and you. But he came on and he looked heavy, he looked slow, he looked slightly sluggish, and he's kind of tricky, and I love watching him because he's the kind of guy that can do things that I could never dream of playing. That's what I want to pay my money for. If I go see a game, I want to see somebody who's got special skills, and he can beat a player and he can dribble a player, and he forced maybe half a dozen free kicks in the game I saw last week against Nottingham Forest. But if he didn't beat the defender, or the defender didn't foul him, he just stopped, and the whole game stopped, and then the players had to come back into their positions as well. You think of Pep, and he has evolved over the years, but it has been tiki-taka football. He's been one touch, two touch, move it on, and when Jack gets it, it slows it down. Then everybody has to just delay their move by a step or two.
It was fine at his old club because they played a different way at Aston Villa, and if he gets the ball, he beats a man, and then beats another man, and then the third guy either fouls him or he beats him too, and then he shoots, right? So that's. But at City, it doesn't work that way. And I think they're really paying a price for that. I want to give credit to Juve.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think it can be easy. I mean, they made so many changes in the summer. This is the Motta 2.0. Chuck in the young players, believe in the academy. They got the Juve, next gen team that they set up. They're actually bringing players through now. But the football's been so dire, so defensive first. And then you get this performance where it's not like they pummeled them, but they showed energy. They showed daring. That sequence where Federico Gatti, the center back, and a center back that everybody laughed at not that long ago, runs the length of the pitch with the ball. It just shows you that when Motta releases the shackles a little bit, they can do stuff that's special.
Yeah, I mean, you could attack me here, but is that not the Italian way? Juventus have started the season and they've proven hard to beat, which is how you start with any team. Sort your defence out, don't lose games. They're not losing games, and now they're beginning to express themselves. And as you say, they've got the players in there. The American connection, wasn't it, this week? Ware and McKennie scoring the goals. So they're now global Juventus as well. So maybe it's a slow build, and maybe you look at this that, what are we, 4 months into the season? Can you really judge the guy 2.0 at this point?
It's a very slow build, and as I've said, he's had his mitigating circumstances because neither Ware nor McKennie would be starters in this Juve side.
However, isn't that a good thing when you get to December? The number of the teams they're blaming the lack of players, yet they're bringing these two guys in and they bring energy to the team and bring.
Well, Ware brings energy. I mean, he's even played at center forward when Vlahovic was out. Vlahovic, by the way, got a goal really important for him because I think he is Juve's real value add. Kenan Yildiz is a phenomenally exciting player. Conceição loves to dribble, and he's little, and his dad was a very good footballer. I mean, I just want to feel like apple don't fall far from the tree on that one. And this also needs to be modulated with the fact that Juventus' defensive leader, Bremer, and their best defender, some might even say his best player, he's been out all season long. The guy that they spent so much money on over the summer, Douglas Luiz, who was supposed to be the hub of the wheel, he's hardly played. I don't know what's going on there. There's been a lot of speculation. He's had injuries. Maybe Thiago Motta doesn't like him anymore. So in that whole context, Motta's taken a ton on his shoulders. Juve have often played poorly, but they certainly rose to the occasion this time around. And it's hard to overstate what the boost is or how big a boost it is to the club. For me, Motta was brought in to play the kind of football he played at Bologna last year, which was really good football, very attack-minded football. And they still play a lot through the wings, like he did through the wide areas, like he did last year. It's just that they're always conservative, which they were not last year. And I'm wondering if you're right. When you, I was gonna.
See, I look at it. I look at, hey, there's six. What are they? Six in the Champions League, almost guaranteed of a place without having to go through the playoffs. Were they not lost in the league? They're not losing games. Okay, you want excitement and thrills, but at the end of the season, maybe by March, April, they will have added that kind of dimension to their game.
And they've made the team a lot younger, and they've obviously cut wages. So I think if you're Juve, you're cautiously optimistic. Well, I think you have to be optimistic about the direction the club are going in. In terms of whether Motta can take you there, I don't know, but it would be pretty remarkable if everything just suddenly clicks for Motta. And because you can see the outline of the football he wants to play, it's just that the mentality and the execution of it isn't there. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a turning point, but it's certainly a massive confidence booster to so many of these young players he has. All right, enough City. How about some quick hits instead? Ferran Torres comes off the bench to score 2 to help Barcelona with a 3-2 away win against Borussia Dortmund. Robbo, this was much better from Barcelona, despite Paul Pogba's silly penalty. We even had a Gio Reyna sighting this season.
Yeah, we're not seeing much of Gio. If he was to Barcelona, ironically, probably be playing every week. So kind of stretched are they for players. It's great to see Torres come back. He scored at the weekend. The Shark, as the Barcelona supporters call him. I was thinking it's a bit like Motta at Atletico Madrid in that he does better for the national team than he does for his club team sometime. But it shows that there is something
difference
beyond
is
the
that Morata's far more handsome and far more technically gifted.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Gab. Right. I think you'll find, but it's proving that he has something in reserve, and also with Flick as well. He looked like a broken man a bit at the weekend, and he got himself sent off, didn't he? And the eyes were a little bit deep, and he lost that. The honeymoon was over, but he found that X factor against Dortmund this week, and that's a big win for Barcelona.
It is a big win. I always caveat everything by saying it's Borussia Dortmund. Jammy penalty, Kubarsi. I don't know what he's thinking, that he thinks he can get away with it. We can debate whether it should have stood, if he was offside. I don't even know how they managed to make the call, because certainly on the camera it looked like the guy was right in front. I don't know, but dude, we called you Kubarsi for a reason. Don't do it again.
Yeah, I mean, they're a work in progress, Barcelona, with this offside trap they've got. Kubarsi is a 17-year-old kid. He'll learn from it, Gab.
He's 17. He was Kubarsi last year.
Bayern go a goal down and then romp past Shakhtar Donetsk 5-1, Gab. Did you like that Michael Elise goal? I'm guessing you did.
We had a debate about this, how good a goal is it really, when it came in the 93rd minute. It's total garbage time. But I love the fact that, you still got to dribble around these guys, and they're tired and whatnot and despondent. Elise is a player and a half. I think we've said this before. Maybe should be playing number 10, but obviously, when Musiala's there. They didn't miss Harry Kane in this game. Thomas Muller did exactly what it said on the tin. Nice to see Leimer score as well. I think it was important that Bayern not be phased and get through this, lock it down, and wait for Kane to return. All this talk of Musiala dependency, the only way you're going to get through that is if other people step up. And Kane is going to do that when he returns. Olise, I think, is ready to do that. I just don't need so much Leroy Sané in my life. That's the one thing I'm not 100. It just seems odd. He's out of contract in June, and he seems to be playing him all the time now.
Yeah, exactly. And 5 goals without Kane is a big hit as well, isn't it?
Liverpool stay perfect in the Champions League as a Mohamed Salah penalty gets them 3 points away to Girona. Rob, job done. Weirdly and excitingly, despite having won every single game, 6 of 6, they're still not mathematically guaranteed a place in the top 8, apparently. But the penalty was a little soft, yeah? Does that matter?
I always liken this. I've done my referees course a couple of times, and I played professional football at one point in my life as well. Now, I was thinking about it today on the way in. It's like being on the tube. If you're a goalkeeper, you're a centre half, and somebody comes and elbows you, that's a free kick, that's a penalty. If they just nudge you out of the way and you're trying to find a position, if somebody rips your boot off and you're standing on the tube, or you're walking down in the high street, then you're probably going to turn around and look pretty angrily at them. His boot was taken off his foot. So that for me was a foul.
How you know he didn't tie his laces properly, or
Well,
whatever?
let's not go into boots falling off people's feet and that kind of thing at the moment. Chelsea players and that kind of thing. But you're right there. It wasn't a great game. It's not one. In a previous life, I used to do the Liverpool highlights, and it's not one that's going to make a lot on the highlights reel come the
You
end
know
of the
what?
season.
It doesn't matter at all because job done, and they're flying. They can focus on the Premier League.
It takes a Tammy Abraham goal to push Milan past Red Star Belgrade 2-1, and Paulo Fonseca is angry again, Gab.
He was angry on Friday. He was angry again today. At least he didn't bring up the issue of referees and respect. Now he's kind of attacking his players for what he sees as a lack of effort, a lack of urgency. Now, to be fair, when there's no Morata, there's no Pulisic, and there's no Ruben Loftus-Cheek, you would think, those would be Loftus-Cheek would have played in the Pulisic position, presumably. Those would be mitigating circumstances. What he really lamented is they took the lead. Great goal from Rafael Leao. Rafael Leao actually worked in this game. But then the players just kind of went soft. They didn't keep attacking. They gave up the equalizer, a bit lax. And then the winner, I think the only good thing you can say about the winner, other than the fact that it was a winner, was that the 16-year-old wunderkind, Camarda, tremendous header, which helped set up Abraham's finish. And I think we're in an interesting situation. Before, a lot of fans were blaming Fonseca. Now, I think a lot of fans are with Fonseca and having a go at the players for perhaps not working hard enough. So there's an interesting dynamic working out there. It says, Paolo, we love you. Don't bring up referees and respect. You sound like somebody else. Rob, we're not done because we have more quick hits.
Okay, let's go.
Arsenal roll past Monaco 3-0 as Bukayo Saka scores 2.5 goals. Yeah, why don't we give him a half for the third one? Rob, Gabriel Jesus got a rare start in place of Havertz and looks good, at least in terms of getting chances.
Yeah, everything is healthy, isn't it, at Arsenal? The fact that you got someone like Jesus who's sitting in their reserve. Havertz came on, looked good. And I'm going to argue now that Saka, I think there's various classes in football. There's kind of Premier League class, there's international class, which I don't doubt that Saka is, but I think Saka is getting very close to being world class when he can do that on a Champions League stage like that. And he is looking sensational. Everything's so healthy at Arsenal.
Saka is definitely world class. I don't think there's any question there. Gabriel Jesus, I was interested in. I'm still not sold. I don't think he's a viable center forward alternative to Havertz, despite the fact this was a game in which he played well, despite the several chances he fluffed. Monaco were poor. In Monaco's defense, and I can't believe I'm defending somebody.
Didn't have much of a defense, did they?
Well, I can't believe I'm defending somebody named Adolf, but they had 2 players suspended, plus Zakaria injured, plus, they have a lot of guys out. Arsenal guys out too, but I think that really affected them and in the way they play.
Absolutely. It was a wild one in Bergamo, and Kylian Mbappe went off early, but Real Madrid got all 3 points with a 3-2 win. And Gab, you were there.
It was a fantastic game. Just so much end-to-end stuff. In the end, you can look at it both ways, right? So the good thing for Real Madrid is all their superstars, although their bigger superstars, scored. Mbappe, Vinicius, who, by the way, had an incredible 40-yard pass for Bellingham's goal, because Vinicius can do that too. He's not just a guy who stands out on the wing and runs. And I wonder, can you think of more creative ways maybe to use Vini to unlock his full potential, if that helps you with Mbappe? That's the good news for Real Madrid and the 3 points, because they were in a pretty sticky situation before that. On the flip side, Atalanta, I thought they had like a 3.3 expected goals. They outshot Real Madrid 20-10. Ederson, for me, again, I can't think of too many players in his position who are better than him in the world right now. He's just an absolute monster. Ademola Lookman as well. And in the end, it came down to Retegui with a miss of the season contender. So kudos to Atalanta. Real Madrid, you got it over the line. You got star power, and you also have a lot of grit, a lot of personality. I love Lucas Vazquez at the end. It's like the 3rd minute of injury time. He runs into Kosunud and throws himself to the ground, for which he got booked for feigning injury, just to eat up the clock. Win by any means necessary. Now we wait for news of Mbappe. In some ways, maybe not a tragedy if he takes a little bit of time off, even though in the half hour he's on the pitch, I thought he looked good. Yeah,
and the latest news is that he might be strained. They did that to Bellingham at the weekend when they thought he might be coming off as well. So let's hope that it's just a precaution, because he's down to the bare bones, isn't he?
Ross Barkley, of all people, scores the winner as Aston Villa win 3-2 away to Leipzig, who remain on 0 points. Rob, Villa are third. Joint third, but third nonetheless.
Could you imagine predicting this back at the start of the Champions League, that the Leipzig would be out, that you'd be smiling at that prospect, and that Villa would be third and virtually guaranteed, having not to go through the rigmarole of playing and nothing. Nobody knows in this new Champions League format as well. But yet they've taken a bit of a hit when it comes to the Premier League recently, Villa, but they've found their way again. Unai Emery is the master of playing European football as well. Maybe this takes him to the next level after all of his success in the Europa League. And people have forgotten about Ross Barkley, that he was still there. And then he comes on and scores this goal. And again, you've got the alternating with the two centre strikers as well, with John Duran coming on and scoring his trademark goal, Watkins getting a goal in the first half as well. And all is very healthy at Aston Villa at the moment. And they are just living the dream, aren't they? It comes late, but Inter finally concede a goal in the Champions League as they fall to Bayer Leverkusen 1-0, Gab. This was fully deserved for Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, Inter I thought were really poor. Now, Alonso played the formation that I don't like, the one with Grimaldo and Frimpong playing as wingers and on a back four behind. I don't get it. I know they've got players out. We saw Nathan Tella again at center forward and Florian Wirtz, but they executed better. Inter really not at the races, and I think really disappointing from Simone Inzaghi. It felt like one of those games where, early in the second half, Inzaghi's like, all right, it's just not working for us. Oh, but look, it's still 0-0. Let's hang in there. And when you do that, you're always at risk, and 3 well-deserved points for Bayer Leverkusen. Atletico de Madrid run past Slovan Bratislava 3-1. Rob, I understand you like what you see from El Cholo. Also, let me chuck this to you. Our colleague Graham Hunter thinks that Atletico Madrid have the best squad 1-20 in Europe. Is he right?
I think he might be wrong, Graham, and I very rarely disagree. I think they're 1-25. They've got the best squad in Europe. I'd never disagree with Graham. And he's bang on. Last night I was commentating on the game for the World Feed. They were the only team, I think, of all of the major teams that didn't have to pad out the bench by bringing in a youth player to make up the numbers, as many of the clubs have had to do recently. I think Real Madrid had
so you don't have many injuries, basically.
They have no injuries, and everybody's fit. They've got this new kind of trainer guy that's come in. They brought 2 back last night that didn't get on the field of play as well. He's got alternates in every position, a little bit like Chelsea. Maybe on a Thursday night, they can name 2 teams, one in the league.
Yeah, but Chelsea's second 11, many of those guys aren't good. I'm sorry. Yeah. Then you get into world of moves.
But Atletico, he played. He only made 1 change last night. And he's found this formation. I don't know whether it's going to catch on, Simeone, but he's gone for this 4-4-2 formation. I mean, it's a bit revolutionary.
It's original.
Yeah,
where did they got that from?
Right, Paris Saint-Germain destroys Salzburg 3-0, Gab. It's a bit like their recent outings. They created plenty, but unlike their recent outings, they actually convert their chances.
Yeah, look, again, I don't want to be mean to Red Bull, but I will be. This is an embarrassing performance from Salzburg. I think it was like 0.15 XG again. But then again, guess what? Your buddy Pep Linders, he's 5th or 6th out of 10 teams in the Austrian top flight. That's just not good when your budget is 10 times everybody else's. Paris Saint-Germain, they're clicking, they're creating chances, they're finishing. Desiree Doué getting the third on the night. They needed this win. They needed this win really, really badly to stay alive, really, in the Champions League. Paris Saint-Germain against Manchester City next. How big is that?
Oh, massive, isn't it?
Celtic
relegation fight.
Potentially. Celtic grabbing away point at Dinamo Zagreb in a scoreless draw. Rob, this felt like a must-win for the home team and a can't lose for Brendan Rodgers.
Absolutely. I think people are underestimating what a great manager Brendan Rodgers is. He's had to go back there. He can't leave the club. Liverpool, you forget he got them to second. He won the FA Cup with Leicester. He got them to 5th place, Leicester City to 5th place. And he went there and he looked desperate at the start of the season. Okay, he needed Schmeichel to make a very big save as well. But 0-0, organised performance. I don't think they've lost in 4 games now. Celtic could have a chance of competing still in the big league.
It's funny, you live on Merseyside, so I'm assuming you're surrounded by Liverpool fans. 98% of the Liverpool fans I know absolutely hate Brendan Rodgers. Are you comfortable stating your opinions on him in public?
I wouldn't say hate. I would say that obviously...
Laugh at?
Yeah.
Joke about him?
It was Dalglish before, it was after, and you've seen the documentary. Right. He was a bit of a laughing stock, but if you actually look at his record, he ain't a bad manager.
It is. He's a good manager.
Lucas Skorupski, have I said that right, makes a string of great saves, and Bologna hang on for a point in a 0-0 draw at Benfica. 2 points drop for the home team.
Well, it's funny because this was really a result which doesn't really help either one. Yes, Bologna get a point, which is nice, but they have 2 points and they're just above the 3 guys who got mathematically relegated. I think they're out. They've had too many injuries and they've been unlucky, I think, as well. Benfica should have won this game. It would have really moved the needle for them in terms of their shot at getting in the top 8. And Skorupski. Go check out his saves on YouTube.
Oh, I love some goalkeeping on YouTube.
Cristiano Ronaldo reacted immediately, or so the PR flacks who sent me the quotes would have me believe, to news that the 2034 World Cup would be held in Saudi Arabia. What did he say, Rob?
Do you want this in a Cristiano voice? He said, "It's amazing. I didn't expect it, but it's so good."
3 so's in there. By the way, that is the Cristiano Ronaldo voice. His accent has evolved into some northern type thing, yeah?
You say the kindest things.
Look, what's he going to say? Oh, no, I have concerns over human rights or whatever. No, he's not going to say that, right? That's where his bread is buttered. But were you a bit amazed? He says, I didn't expect it. I'm like, how'd you not expect it when they're the only country?
I don't think there was a person in the world that didn't expect it. And especially the way they did it. I thought a couple of the tiles were out when they were doing the Zoom call and there's a couple of black bits behind. I thought, oh my goodness, some technician's going to get the sack here. But apparently there are people that abstained as well there. I mean, it was a done deal with everything that is going on behind the scenes as well.
I don't have an issue. He's paid a lot of money to be there. Maybe this is what he really, really believes. I do think that this is so crass, like the way the organizers go and like if he had said this in an interview with somebody else, whatever, but immediately, here's Cristiano Ronaldo quotes. He likes it. I'm like, really? I mean, all right, whatever.
Do you think he actually said it, or do you think it was his PR guy in a voice like mine, maybe like some guy from Yorkshire?
Yeah, maybe it's his Yorkshire PR guy. I don't know.
Right, Gab, the hearing into Manchester City's charges, which are now 130, not 115, by the way, is reportedly over. Does this mean we're going to get a verdict by Christmas, Gab?
No, because lawyers get paid by the hour, right?
They're going to stretch it out, yeah.
No. There's not going to be any Christmas present here, by all indications. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reality is we just don't know because it's just so secretive. Remember, they wouldn't even confirm that Premier League was investigating Manchester City because whatever. I've spoken about this. It's so dissatisfactory the way the whole process is, just in terms of transparency, just in terms of City fans and Premier League fans in general, with the right to know what is going on.
And you thought it might have gone the other way, that they might have kind of dropped a few or reduced a few or kind of bundled them together, but to actually expand them.
115 is what was reported initially, and then others have come out and said, no, there's actually 130. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of them are kind of repetitive and redundant. What matters is what the outcome's going to be. And here's the thing. Sports lawyers say, but I always wonder if they're just guessing, I think in January we'll get the verdict. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It doesn't really matter because whatever the verdict is, we're led to believe the Premier League, if City are cleared, the Premier League are going to appeal it, very likely. Mm-hmm. And if they're found guilty, City will appeal it. So I think the only way is if it's some sort of milquetoast, minor punishment, admission of guilt, but not really, really severe punishment, which then maybe other people might sue the Premier League over it. I don't know. And the process, I think this issue won't get resolved.
But could you imagine if it's a points thing? I mean, they could do it and say, right, this is it. It's a points deduction, and then they'll argue like Everton did and Nottingham Forest did. But if it's a points thing, does that mean that City are then playing survival football?
No, if it's a points deduction, City are going to appeal it, and City are going to say, no, we want our hearing for next season. And I think you would have a very strong case, right? If you have a right to an appeal, you can't implement. I mean, I think the situation last year with Everton and Forest was a bit different because there was a process which was more or less transparent, and it was just an accounting thing, and they would argue over it, and then they would give you their reasons for it. Here, everything is shrouded in secrecy, so that makes it more frustrating. So, no, we won't have a Christmas present for the football finance.
And lawyers get probably double pay over Christmas like other people.
Yes, no question about it.
Yes,
Lord Panic, who seems to be arguing 3 different cases at once, I'm sure he's sitting pretty. My boy, recent development, but I've adopted him. Haj Musa scores another sweet curler, and Feyenoord beat Sparta Prague 4-2. Rob, a lot of firepower in that team, but maybe they need to do a better job of kind of like, you're 3-0 up. Hey, don't let the other team get into it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You set me a little bit of homework here. I'd never heard of this guy until yesterday, and I, you do the YouTube thing. I looked at the game as well, looked at his background, and he's a player, isn't it? And he's a late developer, 23 years of age, playing in the Belgian second division. He shows that there are diamonds out there to be mined as well. And again, a brilliant goal. And again, I think his agents are over here, and they're getting a little bit busy and getting his name in the papers, and maybe they've just inserted
they're paying me to talk.
Yeah,
about
exactly. I was going to say maybe inserted it into this script that didn't seem to be there last night. Maybe you met him on the flight back from Bergen. I don't know. But,
What about the little shimmy? And that, see, for me, because we had this debate in the ESPN offices last night about what the better curler was. I know you're a Julian Alvarez guy.
I like Alvarez. Yeah, I like Alvarez.
But who had the better curler?
Oh, it was a great goal.
As Musa,
it was it was flighty. And a little touch out of his feet as well. Goalkeeper saw it late. Yes, it was perfection. I'll take a cut of your cut. Right, Julien Le Cardinal. Have I said that like Jules?
Julien Le Cardinal.
Julien Le Cardinal scores a goal as little Brest beat Peter Botz's PSV Eindhoven. Gab, the fairy tale continues.
Yes, and like how you said little breast there. It's a matter of taste. Yeah, so when I saw this, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I caught up with the highlights later, but I saw this game. I had this game on one of the screens, and I was seeing the updates with the scores. And I'm kind of assuming, okay, given it's Peter Bosz, it's probably PSV battering them and Brest, their heroic performance, taking a goal. But no, when you actually follow this through, Brest actually created plenty. It was one of those Peter Bosz takes the day off type games, which Jules would probably say is all the time, at least offensively. And it's a big win for them. And the reality is, this team with this teeny tiny budget are right up there, and they could finish in the top 8, which is incredible. Now, I do hope that people don't just say, "Oh, look, this is evidence that the Champions League is perfect the way it is, and there is no imbalance of power." Because I actually I amused myself by looking last night. You remember the Super League, right?
Yep.
Do you remember how many teams were founding members of the Super League?
It got shorter as the days went on.
Well, it was 12, right? 12 founding members, or would-be founding members, like Bayern or whatever. Of the top 14, it's those 12, plus Lille, plus Brest. So it kind of tells you that the rich are still dominating, and which I guess is inevitable. Hakan Haraldsson, not to be confused with his, I think it might be his twin brother, maybe younger brother, anyway, who's also at the club, comes off the bench to score the late winner for Lille against Sturm Graz. Rob, they nearly threw this one away.
Yeah, it was very, very tight. And again, another French team that is doing well. But Haraldsson, who's a good-looking guy, came on, scored that late goal. Again, looks a player, and credit to Lille. Sturm fighting, but I've done Sturm a couple of times this season. They're not great.
But he got back to 2-2. I mean, Jules is always talking about how great Bruno Genesio is doing this. I guess he is doing really well. They're 4th in the league. But, again, you let a 2-goal lead slip like that? No?
Yeah, but they brought the guy on. If I got to be honest, I didn't see a great lot of it. I saw his goal. I liked his goal. They looked energetic. And I'll do Jules. Yes, they're fantastic. French football is great, apart from Paris Saint-Germain. Your boy Hans Vanaken sets up the winner for Casper Nielsen as Bruges get over at Sporting. Gab, things haven't gone well, shall I say, since Ruben Amorim left.
So, first of all,
it's been a good manager.
It's Hans Vanaken. And secondly, you can call him Mr. Champions League. It's a stupid nickname. It's one of the inside jokes we have on the show. It's a nickname that I don't think he gave it to himself, but maybe the Belgian press did it.
He's got a tattoo across his forearm now, apparently. He listens,
Does he really? Yeah, there we go. You get all the inside info from Rob Palmer there. So I like to shoehorn him in the show whenever I can. Bruges are doing well. I think they have a game coming up against City, I believe, which is going to determine their fate. But I think they are getting in there. Sporting, 4 defeats in a row since João Pereira took over from Ruben Amorim. it's weird to me because, it's not like he's a new guy coming in. He was there at the club. I don't know what has changed. Maybe it's Amorim Stardust, but I think they won their first game and then 4 defeats. I think they lost to Moreirense at the weekend. I think they're still going to qualify, but it just shows you what a massive gap is. And the reality is now they can't start believing that, oh no, it's Ruben Amorim. I'm like, guys, Ruben Amorim doesn't go on the pitch. Mm-hmm. He taught you what he needed to teach you. You're the guys playing. You cannot use this as an excuse. Stuttgart go a goal down, but then shake it off to beat Young Boys 5-1. Young Boys, unsurprisingly, because they're not a real football club, they're just a bunch of young boys, are out of the competition. This was a must-win, though, for Sebastian Hoeneß.
Yeah, again, I've had the misfortune, if you like, of seeing unfortunate young boys and commentating on a couple of their Champions League games this season, and I think it's just been an adventure.
But they took the lead.
Yeah, well, a lot of teams took the lead over the Tuesday and Wednesday night and then didn't hang on to the lead and got battered, especially by German teams as well. But Stuttgart, they lost 5-1 the game before as well. They were on a downer. Was it against Zagreb? They weren't expected to lose, especially so heavily. But they showed a lot of... I'm trying to think of a better cojones. Am I allowed to say that?
You are allowed
I'm allowed to say that.
Or intestinal fortitude,
yeah, they
as Vince
showed
McMahon
a
would
lot
say.
of spirit and a lot of guts to come back as well. And that was a statement victory, and it gives them a very good chance. They're some way off it, but they've got a chance with 2 games to go.
Great goal from Chris Furyk as well, if you're into your great goals.
Right, the FIFA Extraordinary Congress, FIFA, the FIFA. I was going to go the whole way. The FIFA Extraordinary Congress has officially named the host of the this is breaking news, by the way, 2030 and 2034 World Cup. Gab, I can't bear the suspense because I've been working the last couple of days. Who got it in the end?
Nobody could have known. Well, it's going to be a joint Portugal, Spain, Morocco bid in 2030, but then they're also going to name special centenary hosts. Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina are all going to host 1 game each to recognize the fact that the first World Cup took place 100 years ago in Uruguay. And Saudi Arabia, 2034. Who would have thought that?
Were they in the bidding?
Yeah, we're being a little sarcastic because obviously this was one of those votes, one of these bidding competitions was not really bidding. Essentially, there was one candidate, and they kind of got all the candidates together. Originally, Spain and Portugal were going to do it on their own. There was a South American bid involving those 3 countries plus Colombia. Morocco were going to do it on their own. And then Uncle Johnny got everybody together and says, hey, guys, why don't you all work together and make one big bid? And Saudi, of course, there was no competition. I mean, Australia sort of pretended for a while like they might do something, but nope, didn't happen. Look, I think what rubs a lot of people the wrong way about this is the way that this wasn't a vote. Even the vote itself was like, well, look, since we only have one bidder, can we have this by acclamation, right? And you had, first of all, they did it remotely, so which lessens the opportunities of skullduggery. And you have all these people. I think we all saw it, right, on these little Zoom screens behind Johnny.
Oh, the little tiles behind him, yeah.
Let's vote by acclamation. They all clap. Anybody opposed? No, hey, I'm the leader.
It's like a Spanish FA meeting, yeah?
You said that, not me. It's just not a good way to do things. It does not, would it have killed you? Look, you've decided there's one bidder, right? Why not have people vote? What, you embarrassed that a bunch of countries might vote against or might abstain? Now if you were against this, you had to go and do a press conference or issue a press release saying that you were abstaining or voting against and you did not agree with the acclamation, which is what Norway did. Norway announced they were abstaining, not because of the human rights situation in Saudi, I hasten to add, unlike last time when the Norwegian FA president, Lisa Klaveness, she had a lot of reservations about the human rights situation in Qatar. They abstained because of the process, apparently.
So they abstained rather than protested, they just said.
Well, it wouldn't have changed
They basically turned their Zoom call off, didn't they, at the end of the day?
Look, I mean, I think if you're going to make a stand, make a stand. Otherwise, just go along with it and say we're okay with things kind of being decided top down. I think Saudi, we've talked about before, about the bidding process and the bidding review people are asking about, wait, how do they end up with a higher score than the United States, which actually United States, Mexico, and Canada, where the stadium's already built, the infrastructure's already been there, whereas in Saudi it's 4 of 15. And I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked about this. And
so 11 new stadiums, 104 games, 48 teams out there.
I mean, it's a big country and the money's there. You might want to ask, though, this is 10 years away. What's the situation going to be like in Saudi in 10 years' time? Will MBS still be around? Will, reforms that are happening, will they continue? Will they stop? Will we go backwards? Will they still have money? Will oil still be a thing? Will we all be driving solar-powered cars? I don't know.
But I guess this is their thing. It's Vision 2030, isn't it? The Crown Prince and everything like that. So if I was his PR guy, which I'm not, by the way, I'd be saying, well, we've got a vision for 2030. This is 4 years beyond it. This is the brave new world that they're trying to put their citizens in and put them on the map, and it'll be fantastic, and everybody will love it. It'll be Qatar Mark II.
If you ask me, and I appreciate Johnny didn't, but I literally get paid to give my views, unsolicited. There's no reason to combine 2030 and 2034 in one bidding process. I like joint multi-country bids because
they had them all in the. Oh no, there wasn't an assembly. They weren't there, were they?
I like I don't have an issue with multi-country bids. Some people don't like that because if you don't have multi-country bids, then the reality is that only bigger countries will get to host a World Cup. I would question whether Saudi Arabia needs 15 state-of-the-art stadiums when it's a country of 40 million people. I would question, if England needs them, frankly, or so it's not a Saudi thing. And England, I believe, of nearly double the population of Saudi Arabia. So I just worry it's going to be wasted time and so on, and wasted money, which could be used for other things.
And a Winter World Cup again, by the sounds of things. Maybe a later Winter World Cup.
Yeah, it's unclear because there's an overlap with the Asian Games and with Ramadan 1 year. Look, I can live with all this. I just wonder, you do not care about how it looks to the rest of the world. When, the last time that they assigned 2 World Cups at the same time, 2018 and 2022, we know the skullduggery that took place then. Right? This is a previous FIFA regime. So to do it again this time around, I really don't see what the need is when it's a new and reformed FIFA. If Saudi Arabia wants to bid for 2034, let them bid for 2034. But there's no reason to combine the two together. And I think that's just left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Fallout from Dan Ashworth's departure continues, Rob. According to multiple reports of the media, Ratcliffe was annoyed that Ashworth said that he had nothing to do with the decision to retain Ten Hag, and that he felt Ashworth wasn't enough of a, quote, alpha male. Now, you're an alpha male. Okay, this is a media briefing.
You say the kindest things.
Okay, look, this is a media briefing, which, for those who don't know, is this weird thing that happens here in England. It happens elsewhere, too. We're basically clubs or individuals, and I'm assuming this sounds like something that somebody close to Ashworth might say, whatever, are basically paid to, without putting their name to it, tell people what happened, and the media reports it as a fact.
Tell me, now I'm going to interview you as a journalist now. I mean, I've had media briefings a long, long time ago, and a press officer might come and say to me, you might want to ask this, or you might want to say that, or and they'll kind of drop a hint in conversation. What is a media briefing? So, we know what they are in politics. What are they in football?
So this is something. All right. So these types of briefings, because it's a broad word. But
is it official? They'll just buy you a coffee down in the local coffee shop.
No, clubs hire either external PR people, or sometimes it's the clubs themselves, who go and say, "Okay, I'm going to tell you, but you can't attribute it to me. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened." Now, in the U.S., with U.S. reporting standards, when they do that, it's what they call off the record, which means you cannot print it. You can use the information and you can try to independently verify it, and then you can print it. Here, it's coming from the club, so you assume it's true, but you can't say it came from the club. And so inevitably, you see this after every manager gets sacked. The club explained, well, why is the manager sacked, right? And then you find out, so-and-so had lost faith in Ten Hag. Ten Hag didn't tidy his desk. Ten Hag parked in the handicap space. Ten Hag ate his boogers. Whatever it is, right? And it's just, for me, it's just not a good way to operate. even if the stuff that they say is true, because there's no accountability.
Yeah.
So as far as Ashworth saying he had nothing to do with Ten Hag's departure, as I understand it, Ashworth was on gardening leave at the time. So legally...
Exactly, yeah. So he couldn't. He'd be dropping himself in if he said he did, wouldn't he?
And dropping United into trouble if he had done.
I mean, he should be coming in the office and saying to the boss, what's happening with the manager, by the way? What did you do when I was kind of attending my roses? I mean, isn't it kind of the most beautiful garden, by the way? Because I guess he's back on gardening leave again now while they sort out all the contract details as well.
Most of the past 5 years
But clearly what it said on the can, or they hadn't done their due diligence on what he'd done at the FA and what he'd done at West Brom, and maybe not quite so successfully at Newcastle United. The guy was an organiser. He was an operator rather than somebody that's going to tell you the XG or the number of crosses with the left foot of the guy that you're going to be signing as well. So I think they probably had the position, but got the wrong man for the position that they got. And
I think they also have other people whose roles and responsibilities clearly overlap with him, such as Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, Christopher Vivell, who they since hired as technical director, without forgetting, of course, your buddy Sir Dave Brailsford, the cycling expert.
Oh, you forgot about it.
Yeah, so not a good look. I don't know. What about this alpha male thing? Like, what? He's not assertive enough. He doesn't. I mean, to be fair, if you can Google what Dan Ashworth looks like, he looks like a pleasant man.
He looks the guy on the bus, doesn't he? He looks like the guy that you see every day, kind of walking to work. He doesn't wear bright clothes. He doesn't stand out in the crowd.
How about we judge people by the work they do rather than the way they look?
But I get the impression from what he's done, he's an FA man, so maybe he wears a suit and a blazer all of the time, and that's not alpha male. But I get the impression he's the guy that looked and assessed things, and Ratcliffe wanted somebody that came in that was abrasive, that threw kind of files on there and gave him data.
Yeah, because that's a good way to run a business.
Well, sticking with Ashworth, our colleague James Ollie reports that Arsenal are looking at him as a potential replacement for Edu as sporting director. That would be poetic, wouldn't it?
You say we're looking at him, you mean looking at Ashworth, not James Ollie.
Yeah, well, maybe James could be a double act. He could be one of these kind of guys that gives the sources. He could be part of, you've educated him today.
Yeah, I don't think this would be a great choice, frankly, for Arsenal. It's not a knock on Dan Ashworth. I mean, clearly Ashworth is not sort of the super successful guru, can't fail, but he's obviously, has a good track record elsewhere, although people might point to Brighton and say, oh, look, Brighton got even better after he left, or he was part of a process, right? I think you want somebody who can work with Arteta, but necessarily sits above Arteta and can challenge Arteta. That's how you get the best out of your coach. I think that's best practice. I'm not sure if Dan Ashworth necessarily fits into that bucket. That said, he's very close to Richard Garlick, who's now running the club. So, there's value in that too, having the trust and relationship of the chief executive.
Have you got to that point now where the coach picks the sporting director rather than the club's the sporting director picks the coach?
But you have to take the coach into account, especially when you've invested heavily in what is a young team and you have a coach you expect to be around for a while. So I think you need to consider that. I don't know. He just doesn't quite feel right at Arsenal, in my view. Rob, you know how current professionals know the game because they know better because they actually play the game? I always have fun because FIFPro, which is the players' union, they nominate their World 11 every year, and they send out questionnaires. It's a bit like the PFA award to all their members, men and women, and they vote on a men's 11 and a women's 11. And inevitably and invariably, I can't help but take issue with it. Not just because of the bias on forwards. But you've got the FIFPro men's 11 there. Anything you want to take issue with?
Well, you may argue, and I guess there's a lot of Messi-istas out there, that Lionel Messi hasn't had a place in the team for the first time in 17 years. Maybe surprisingly, Cristiano Ronaldo hasn't got a place. I would argue, and I used to be a member of the PFA a long time ago, I probably still am, and I used to get a vote, that if I was voting now, I probably wouldn't have gone, I'll give you the team, Ederson in goal. This was, I think, voted for in the autumn before Edison maybe lost his touch. They've gone for a back three, I think, just to make sure that everybody plays. Danny Carvajal, yes, brilliant. In the eyes of Real Madrid, maybe the second best player in the world last year. Van Dijk, can't disagree with. Rudiger has been immense, plays every single game for Real Madrid at the moment, the only fit defender they've got there.
Well,
so they've gone for a back three there.
Yeah, Kyle Walker also nominated, which means he received votes. I would have had a real issue with him. I don't really have an issue with these three, frankly.
Yeah. You know, it's a nomination. Kyle Walker had a good season last season. They've gone for a midfield of Jude Bellingham. Yes, fantastic. Mentioned earlier, scoring goals every game again now. And he's playing a different role for Real Madrid. Instrumental in last season's double. Kevin De Bruyne, Toni Kroos and Rodri. Rodri, best player in the world. Kevin De Bruyne is the one player I may have just taken out that I'll upset my wife here. And I might have just put Messi in there just for old time's sake.
But had another forward on there?
Well, it's an attacking team. Who were they playing against?
It's true.
You know, you got to pick your team for the opposition, Gab.
And Toni Kroos retired, but still makes the team.
But Kroos was fantastic.
Right.
And he left
No
everybody
issue.
wanting more than he was like Sinatra. He left them there. And a front three of Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, and Vinicius Junior. I don't think anybody can disagree with those three.
Oh, no, I can.
Can they? Oh, go on.
I'm sorry, well, Mbappe. I mean, I'm not saying he's not one of the best three in the world, but is it that obvious that you would pick Kylian Mbappe based on last season ahead of
I'll give you
or
one.
Messi?
Lamine Yamal isn't in there.
Lamine
Yamal should be in there. I would put him in. Mbappe, you're looking at pros and they're looking at Mbappe and thinking this guy's got skills and ability that I don't have. You know, there's Harry Kane's not in there. He doesn't quite make it. But Lamine Yamal is the one big miss there. But Mbappe is an exceptional footballer. He's still going over a goal a game at the moment. He's just not the fully fledged Mbappe that we've seen in
Cristiano
World Cups.
Ronaldo scoring a goal a game too, and there's no room for him either.
That's a very good point.
Or Lionel Messi, despite winning the Copa America.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was before they screwed the pooch in the in the MLS playoffs.
Right, Gab, the Women's FIFA Pro 11 was also announced. Any surprises for you in the Women's 11?
So I am not going to pretend as regular. Jules is the women's football kind of go-to person. I think this is far more problematic from my view than the men's 11, and I think it has to do with the fact that women footballers don't necessarily watch or are covered in the same amount of media coverage as men's footballers do. Jules went through this. Jules gave me his World 11 last time.
Yeah.
Not many names on both lists here.
No Americans.
I'm going to... I mean, Lindsay Horan was... she was nominated, but she did not make the team. Which, again, just not many players from NWSL, period. In the final 11, the only ones from the NWSL are Barbara Banda, who, of course... with the Orlando Pride, they won the title, and Marta also with the Orlando Pride. Marta also did well at the Olympics as well. She came on in the final. Marta is also 40 years old. I think there might be others who might have had a strong case. Tabitha Chawinga is one person that Jules mentioned who maybe should have been in here. But you're talking about reputation. Mary Earps, she's a goalkeeper. She's been in and out of the team at Paris Saint-Germain. That feels a little bit odd when, the other goalkeepers, Mackenzie Arnold and Christine Endler. I think this reflects the fact that most of these that these votes come from FIFA Pro members, and I don't know if the women who play in the NWSL are FIFA Pro members, or if FIFA Pro members in Europe, women footballers, watch any NWSL at all. But we had Marta telling us NWSL is the best league in the world. And
maybe they sent it by airmail and didn't get to the States.
No,
they didn't get a vote. Because it is
know.
bizarre. If you think about women's football, you think of the excellence of the American women's team are always there or thereabouts, aren't they?
I mean, American women, you could maybe make a case that right now there maybe isn't the outstanding individual. Maybe Sophia Smith, perhaps. I'm still a Rose Lavelle person. Jules had Naomi Girma in there as one of the outstanding defenders. They had Jess Carter as well, both nominated. Neither one made the team. I don't know. It shows, talking about equality between women's football and men's football. I think women footballers, judging by this list, have all the same foibles as the men footballers, and I just wonder how closely they actually pay attention to what's going on in in other parts of the world.
It's good to see that
frankly.
you disagree with both. Parity.
Exactly. Multiple outlets are reporting that Manchester United are looking to shift Marcus Rashford. Daily Mail reports they'd accept £40 million for him. Others say they'd take even less. Is this the right price? Is this the right move?
Another briefing, eh? Another sources are closest to Manchester United.
I think.
Yeah.
All right. Don't hate me. Marcus Rashford has a very well-known PR person who may or may not use a women's toilet. I don't know if this is where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Again, he's a fantastic footballer. We know what he's capable of doing, but he seems to have gone stale at Manchester United. And again, speaking to people within the game, it may be best to take Marcus out of that environment and give him a new challenge. His big pal Lingard went over. I think he had a good week last week, didn't he, Lingard? Mason Greenwood is doing very well. He left Manchester United as well. Jadon Sancho had to leave Manchester United. And maybe it's time for him to go. And he's been at United since he was in...
You just compare... With all due respect, Jesse Lingard with Marcus Rashford.
No, that was his big pal. They're always doing the TikTok videos and whatever together.
Yeah, it's fine, but I think Marcus Rashford might be on a slightly different level.
But eventually they had to get him out of there to kind of sort his head out. And I'm thinking, that's what I'm saying, to sort Rashford's head out, to get him out of his current environment and his little maybe cocoon of people that he has around him. They have to take him out of Manchester. Maybe he has to go abroad, don't know, Paris.
But when you say
like
you're talking about his people or you're talking about Manchester United?
His advisors. His advisor, and I think United would not be disappointed to see his peg vacant in the locker room as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think this is what's really interesting to me here in this conversation is, okay, Ashworth is gone, but this is a decision that you just hired Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim came over knowing that Marcus Rashford was there. He's been in charge for, what, a month, if that? You don't do anything with Rashford until you get Amorim's feedback.
Do you not think that Amorim would be looking at that situation? No, he's not going to come into Manchester United on day one and kind of learn the names. He will have done his due diligence on United before taking the job. And it may be a thing.
I'm sorry, if I'm Amorim, I'm going to say, I'm going to look at Marcus Rashford in isolation. I'm going to take all the input, and I'm going to make up my own mind from working with him every day, not just watching video of how Rashford played under Eric Ten Hag. I'm going to ask myself, does he fit into my system? So I don't think...
The other thing as well, at every club, money's tight. And they say to him, you want some money in the winter transfer market? We're going to have to sell to buy. You want to get some money in? Which one are you going to sell? So
he's on enormous wages. I don't think there's a big market for Marcus Rashford, frankly. Well, the two clubs that always get mentioned, right, are Paris Saint-Germain, and then, and Jules' head explodes, and Spurs, weirdly. As if they don't know who runs Spurs, right? So yeah, I just think everybody there, Amorim has said everybody has a chance to prove themselves from day one. And I think Amorim will stay true to that. And I think the worst thing United could do right now, especially when you know something like Rashford is so difficult to shift because of the size of his contract, is you wait and then you have this conversation in March and you say, hey, what do we do with Rashford? Are you going to give him playing time? Do you want to give him playing time? If he moves, what can we do? And then you let Wilcox and Barada and Christopher Vivell. You need something to do now that Ashworth is gone. You let them decide what can be done. And obviously take into account what Rashford wants to do too.
Gab, old timers like you and me remember when there were 2 Andy Grays and 2 Gary Stevens. These days, there are 2 Paul Elliots at Charlton Athletic.
So producer Freddie didn't want me to do this question because he said he thought it was puerile. I think it's funny that in this country, because you're not super imaginative with names, perhaps, names keep repeating all the time. So I remember as a kid, hearing about, 2 Gary Stevens, and then there's 2 Andy Grays. And Paul Elliott, I wasn't expecting this. I know one of the Paul Elliots because
when you hear Charlton and Paul Elliott in the same sentence, you
exactly.
just assume, don't
That's
you?
the Paul Elliott who famously worked for the PFA and played in Serie A as well as played for Celtic, played for Chelsea here in England. So apparently there's the other Paul Elliott. Shall we call them? I was going to say a not nice word, but let's call him businessman Paul Elliott.
Yep.
So businessman Paul Elliott, he says that in 2019, he loaned Charlton £500,000 at the time they needed to meet bills. It was supposed to be, I think, effectively down payment on him buying the clubs. The problem is he then failed the owner and director test
Which is difficult to do.
Which is very, very difficult to do. Apparently, he'd gone bankrupt twice, and maybe they didn't know that. And then the owner at the time, though, says is an American guy named Sandgaard, which sounds like something you might buy online. He came out and he said, well, no, you said you wired us $500,000, but you never actually did. He's saying you're lying. I want my $500,000 back. Sandgaard, in the meantime, has sold the club and to these other people. And now Paul Elliots is a director at the club, not business Paul Elliots, football Paul Elliots. So I just think it's funny that in this country you run out of names, and you guys are you're like regens in computer games, right?
So when the fans sing "There's only one Paul Elliots," they're talking about the player,
well
not the
know
guy
there's two of
sitting
them.
there in a blazer.
Exactly.
RMC Sport in France report that Paul Pogba is close to. I was going to say, it says singing here. He's going to be singing with Marseille. Will he be singing? Will he be signing as soon as his ban is over? Is it a good place to stay? It's a lovely place to go to, but is it a good place to reconvene your football career?
So, all right, there's two answers to
and sing in the street.
All right, strictly from a footballing perspective, given it's Roberto De Zerbi and the way they play,
True.
I don't know that it's an obvious fit. I think it might actually take some time for him to settle in. On the other hand, Adrien Rabiot rocked up and was good almost straight away. So, and obviously Paul Pogba is Paul Pogba, right? I just want to see him playing again after what he's been through. Obviously, he's made a mistake. What he's still dealing with the trial involving extortion and his brother, which is ongoing. I hope that gets wrapped up. I hope he can go back because I love to see Paul Pogba play his best. I genuinely like the guy. He's obviously made mistakes. He hasn't always played well. He's had issues, but he's a footballer, and the clock is ticking on him. And I wonder if this will flush out other clubs, and I hope he has to find a place where he's comfortable.